Lydia.
I'm Susan.
And welcome to the Citizen Science with the River Slang project that we are undertaking here today. In this project, we will be following the River Slang from its source here at Three Rock all the way to the mouth at the River Daughter.
So Leah, how can we learn about the trees that grow along the river?
I'm glad you asked, Susan, because trees are such an important part of riparian or riverside ecosystems, and the river gives so much to the trees and the trees give so much back to the river. So we're here by the River Slang area near Marley Domain, and we'll be investigating how to identify trees and how to record our findings, and also do some crafting and exploring with the colors and shapes that the trees provide. What do you think?
Sounds great.
Let's have a think about why trees grow by the water. A fancy science word description of water-loving trees is riparian, which means situated or placed on the banks of a river. The ancient Celts saw the places where two realms meet as being particularly magical. This feels true in my experience of nature with places like waterside forests, which have very rich and valuable habitats. There are lots of reasons to admire trees growing on the river's edge. They help prevent riverbanks from eroding away or falling down. They're important sources and storage sites for nutrients and energy. Trees naturally alter the chemical balance of the water when they take up minerals from the soil and release them into the water as the plants and creatures need them. Their shade helps keep the growth of water weeds in balance and helps balance the temperature in the water as well. They create ecological corridors, which create links within and between forest patches. These corridors then provide routes along which animals, and the seeds that might be attached to them, travel. The actual leaf litter falling into the water is a crucial part of the river's food chain. Many upland streams are too cold for plants to grow, so leaf litter from riparian trees becomes the main source of energy. Finally, dead wood which falls into a waterway slows the flow of water in the stream, and this can help to form still pools, which serve as territories for different fish species. Some fish use these areas as a place to have their babies. Deadwood also provides shelter from predatory birds and mammals, and pieces of wood can trap organic matter, thereby increasing the amount of food at the bottom of the food chain. Deadwood are the branches and pieces of wood that have fallen off the tree and find a place in the river. Now let's uncover some background stories about trees that often grow by waterways and look for simple ways to identify them or pick them out of a crowd. So once we've learned about why trees might grow by water and the relationship that trees have with water, an excellent activity is to try to identify them and get to know them. There's many ways you can do this, and they all include using your skills of observation, a very important citizen science skill. And we need to think about what time of year we're in and what we can observe at that time of year. So, for example, this time of year, some trees will have lost a lot of their leaves, as we can see by the leaf litter on the ground, but some of them, like the evergreen yew tree, we can identify year-round. And this time of year especially, we're starting to notice some of its lovely red berries, and we can use tools like the National Biodiversity Data Center's tree swatches to help us make sure that we're on the right track. So I found the yew tree right here. It's a gorgeous, beautiful native Irish tree. And that's just one example. There's so many other tools we can use, and we have lots of help from things already published and available, like the Our Trees publication from the Tree Council of Ireland. This one can help us learn how to save seeds from trees and plant them ourselves. Super cool. This one, Nature Detectives from the Woodland Trust, helps us find leaves and identify them. And this lovely book, Ireland's Trees by Niall McCoyder, teaches us about the folklore and the uses of the trees and all kinds of amazing stuff. So there's loads to learn, and we're looking at the leaves, the bark, and engaging with the tree year round. Something that I love to do all times of the year is make something called a mandala. Mandala means circle in Sanskrit, which is an ancient South Asian language. And making circles with things found in nature is something that happens across cultures. So possibly in your own culture, there's a ritual that involves this as well. But today I'll be making a mandala with the leaves that I've found at this season scattered around us here in this place. And it's a really nice way to kind of interact with and record what we find in nature at different times of year. So I'm looking for colors, different textures, different shapes from the trees, and also trying to identify them as I go. And something that I'll do is I'll brush away a space so that it's kind of like a canvas where I can create my mandala image. And I might get Susan's help too. It's fun to do with friends. So here we go.
Along the River Slang, and we've followed it all the way through Dundrum town. We can see that it's passing behind people's gardens. So Leah, could you tell us a little bit about this plant that seems to be growing along the River Slang?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Susan. This is laurel, and cherry laurel is an example of an invasive species that is not native to a place, in this case not native to Ireland. It does really grow well here, so it's taking over and out-competing native trees and other plant species here and shading out plants that would otherwise be growing. And herbivores, or plant-eating animals, can't eat it or digest it, so it ends up getting a bit out of control. So some groups, as part of a citizen science project, might identify where that's happening and take action to remove some of the laurel.
I think that would be a really good project.
Susan, I couldn't help but stop along our walk because I noticed an alder here, and it's just really nice to notice what it looks like for the alder to be growing, a native Irish tree, a riparian water-loving tree, in contrast to the laurel that we saw before. And the alder is such a gorgeous tree, and especially at this time of year, it's really easy to identify with its reddish cones and reddish sap. And because of those colors, in ancient times, it was thought of as a tree of war because of those colors. And round shields would be made out of its trunk. So there are some cool uses for this tree, and it loves growing by the waterside. And it's really nice to notice at this time of year, and all the little birds enjoying it too. Now that we've had a chance to get to know some of the trees out by the water, back at home, I want to keep a record of what I've identified, and will also input what I've found into the National Biodiversity Data Center record for plant species to contribute to citizen science. But here for my own record, I keep a binder with the leaves that I found in my local waterway area. And when I'm finished, I'll put it into this little laminate page and add it in. But for now, I chose one leaf I found particularly striking. You might know what it is. Seen a lot at this time of year in wreaths. This is a holly leaf, and I'm using my identification swatch to make sure that I'm on the right track. I see it has its pointy edges and its dark green color with its lighter green underside. And I'm going to attach it onto the page using some tape. You can also trace it and draw it. There's many ways you can do this. And I like to add a few notes about the leaf, just so I can reference it easily, and it feels different when I've done it myself versus just seeing it on someone else's identification book. So I will add this in and keep it in my own records and add it into the Citizen Science portal as well.
Citizen Science and the River Slang. We'll learn about your name and the birds and the plants who reside here.